Look closely at the screen the next time a global figure addresses the nation. Ignore the words they speak and focus instead on the subtle, almost imperceptible flickers of the physical form. A blink that happens a fraction of a second too slowly. A patch of skin that seems to catch the light like polished glass rather than soft tissue. A momentary distortion in the iris that suggests a vertical orientation rather than a round one. These are the moments where some believe the mask slips, revealing a presence that has been part of our civilization since the dawn of recorded history. It is a recurring observation that has haunted the fringes of public consciousness for decades, suggesting that the structures of power are not quite what they seem. The narrative of an ancient, non-human lineage hiding in plain sight is perhaps the most enduring mystery of the modern age. It is a story told through the architecture of our cities, the symbols on our currency, and the peculiar genealogies of the ruling elite. For centuries, the concept of the divine right of kings suggested that monarchs were not like ordinary people. They claimed a different origin, a celestial or ancient heritage that justified their seat of power. While modern history treats this as mere political theater or a tool for legitimacy, some observers suggest that the claim of a different bloodline was not a metaphor, but a literal statement of biological distinction that has been maintained through the ages. This phenomenon often begins with what many call the digital glitch. In the age of high-definition broadcasting and relentless digital scrutiny, every frame of video is analyzed by thousands of eyes across the globe. Sometimes, during a live feed, the compression algorithm appears to fail or struggle with a rapid movement. In those milliseconds, viewers report seeing something that defies standard anatomy. Teeth that appear pointed or serrated for a single frame. Skin that momentarily adopts a texture reminiscent of something found in a controlled environment. While skeptics point to technical errors and signal interference, proponents of an alternative view argue that these aren't artifacts of the camera, but a failure of a sophisticated cloaking mechanism that relies on frequency to maintain a human appearance. Why would such a presence choose to remain hidden? If a more advanced or ancient biological group truly navigated the corridors of power, their survival would depend entirely on the illusion of being one of us. To manage a population that outnumbers you by millions, you must ensure they never realize they are being governed by something fundamentally different. This necessitates a deep understanding of human psychology, the control of information, and the preservation of specific bloodlines. When you trace the family trees of the world's most influential figures, the results are often unsettling. Distant cousins, interconnected dynasties, and a circular path of inheritance seem designed to keep the inner circle incredibly tight and the genetics consistent. The lore of the serpent, or the scaled visitor, is not unique to any single culture. From the Sumerian accounts of the Anunnaki to the feathered serpent gods of the Aztecs and the Naga of Eastern tradition, the motif of a powerful, non-human entity interacting with early civilization is universal. In these stories, these beings were often described as the bringers of knowledge, the architects of the first cities, and the founders of the first legal systems. If these accounts are more than just ancient mythology, it suggests that the foundations of human society were laid by an influence that was never human to begin with, establishing a template of governance that persists to this day. One of the most striking aspects of this perspective is the behavior of those in high-level positions. Observers often point to a specific lack of empathy, a cold, clinical approach to global crises, and a strategic vision that spans centuries rather than decades. Human leaders are typically driven by short-term gains, emotional connections, and the legacy of their own lifetime. However, the systems that govern our world seem to operate on a much longer timeline, suggesting a continuity of purpose that transcends a single human lifespan. It is as if the hand at the wheel has been there for a very long time, steering the species toward a destination we are not yet permitted to see, operating with a level of detachment that feels fundamentally alien. The physical evidence often cited is subtle, focusing on the uncanny valley. This is the psychological space where something looks almost human, but just off enough to trigger an instinctive sense of unease. When we watch certain leaders, there is often a feeling that the expressions of emotion, the smiles, the displays of anger, the gestures of compassion, are performed rather than felt. It is the calculated movement of a biological machine or a pilot wearing a sophisticated suit. The way their eyes might move independently of their head, or the way their neck muscles react to stress, often defies the standard patterns of human biology, leaving the viewer with a sense of lingering discomfort. Consider the historical obsession with blood. History is saturated with tales of blue blood and the absolute necessity of maintaining the purity of a royal line. While this is often dismissed as a quest for prestige, others suggest that this obsession is about maintaining a specific genetic compatibility required for unique biological traits to manifest correctly. Without this genetic consistency, the ability to maintain a human form or access certain levels of cognitive function might degrade. It is a focus on lineage that goes far beyond simple heritage, suggesting that the purity being protected is something that distinguishes the ruler from the ruled at a cellular level. The environment of the modern world might also be changing to suit a different biology. The rising temperatures, the shift in atmospheric composition, and the constant saturation of electromagnetic frequencies could be interpreted as a gradual terraforming project. What if the changes we see in our world are not merely accidental byproducts of industry, but a deliberate environmental shift to make the planet more hospitable for a different kind of biology? It is a chilling thought that our own technological progress is being used to build a world where we are the ones who are eventually out of place, while the entities in the shadows find themselves more at home. Despite the intensity of these claims, there is a powerful psychological counter-argument that is grounded in reality. The human brain is hardwired for pareidolia, the tendency to see familiar patterns where they don't exist. We see faces in clouds and shapes in shadows. In the digital age, video compression artifacts can easily be misinterpreted as biological anomalies by a mind looking for a deeper meaning. Our innate distrust of those in power, combined with our love for storytelling, could lead us to project our fears onto the leaders we find most alienating. The Reptilian might not be a physical being, but a psychological archetype for the cold, unfeeling nature of modern bureaucracy and the weight of systemic power. Yet, the questions remain. Why do so many world leaders across different cultures and eras share the same bizarre physical quirks in historical records? Why do the same families appear at the helm of history again and again, regardless of the political system in place? And most importantly, why does the mention of this specific theory trigger such an intense, almost defensive reaction from the mainstream? Usually, the most outlandish ideas are ignored or laughed off, but this one is frequently suppressed with a fervor that suggests it touches on something deeply uncomfortable within the collective psyche. The technology used to maintain this alleged disguise is often described in terms of bioenergetics. Every living being emits a frequency. If a being could manipulate its own frequency or use a device to project a holographic overlay onto its physical form, it could walk through a crowded street without being noticed. It would only be in moments of extreme stress, high-energy electromagnetic interference, or during a low-quality digital transmission that the overlay would stutter. These are the slips that people claim to capture on camera. The brief window where the underlying reality becomes visible to the naked eye for a fraction of a second. The architectural symbols found in the world's power centers further deepen the mystery. From the snake-like shape of certain audience halls to the reptilian motifs hidden in the gargoyles of ancient cathedrals, the imagery is everywhere. If you wanted to hide a truth in plain sight, you would weave it into the very fabric of the world, making it so common that people stop questioning why it's there. The serpent has always been a symbol of both wisdom and deception. It represents the hidden knowledge of the earth and the ability to shed one's skin to become something new, a perfect metaphor for a hidden ruling class. In the high-stakes world of global diplomacy, the players move with a coldness that feels disconnected from the heat of human passion. Wars are started, economies are shifted, and populations are moved like pieces on a board. This level of detachment is difficult for the average person to comprehend. We operate on love, fear, and immediate survival. To operate on a scale of millennia requires a different kind of consciousness altogether. It requires a mind that views the human race not as kin, but as a resource to be managed, a garden to be tended, or a biological experiment to be observed from a distance. As our surveillance technology improves, the shadows where these entities might hide are becoming smaller. We are entering an era of unprecedented clarity, where every pore and every micro-expression can be analyzed by artificial intelligence. If there is an ancient lineage hiding among us, they are facing a moment of crisis. They must either evolve their methods of concealment or prepare for a world where the secret is no longer keepable. The tension we feel in the world today, the sense that we are approaching a breaking point, might not be political or economic. It might be the friction of a hidden reality trying to stay submerged, while the tide of human awareness continues to rise. If you look into the history of the world's most powerful dynasties, you will find a consistent pattern of ritual and tradition that seems out of step with the modern world. These aren't just empty ceremonies. They are often held in private, away from the prying eyes of the public, and involve ancient languages and symbolic acts that date back to the first civilizations. Why would the most modern, technologically advanced people on Earth cling so fiercely to these archaic rites? Perhaps because these rituals are the only way they can maintain their connection to their true origins, a way to stabilize their presence in a world that is fundamentally alien to them. The idea of royal blood is often linked to the concept of the R complex in the human brain, the most primitive part of our anatomy, responsible for survival, aggression, and territorial behavior. Proponents of the theory suggest that these entities have a highly developed R complex, allowing them to remain calm and calculated in situations that would paralyze a normal human with fear. They are the ultimate survivors, the ultimate predators, and the ultimate strategists. They do not feel the noise of human emotion that complicates our decision-making. They see the world as a series of vectors and outcomes, unaffected by the sentimentalities of the species they oversee. The possibility of such a presence is not something that can be proven with a single photograph or a single video clip. It is a conclusion reached by connecting 1,000 disparate dots across history, biology, and politics. It is found in the strange accounts of whistleblowers who claim to have seen things in the underground levels of government facilities that they cannot explain. It is found in the ancient texts that describe gods who walked among men and took human wives to create a hybrid ruling class. It is found in the lingering feeling of otherness we get when we see certain people on the world stage, an instinct that tells us we are in the presence of something different. Whether this is a literal biological truth or a profound metaphor for the nature of power, it forces us to ask critical questions about the world we live in. Are we the masters of our own destiny? Or are we living in a carefully constructed environment designed by an intelligence we don't fully understand? The mask of society is thick, and the roles we play are well rehearsed. But every now and then, the lighting shifts. The camera focuses at just the right angle, and we catch a glimpse of the eye behind the mask. And in that moment, the eye doesn't look human. It looks back with a cold, ancient familiarity. As you turn off your screen and return to your daily life, the thought may linger. You might find yourself looking at the world a little differently. You might notice the symbols and the architecture of your city. You might look a little closer at the eyes of the people on the news. The truth, if it exists, is not hidden in a vault or a secret file. It is right there in front of us, walking the halls of power, signing the laws, and shaping the future. The most successful disguise is the one that is so obvious no one believes it could be real. But the greatest trick ever played was convincing the world that the shadows were just a trick of the light. Look closer. The silence between the heartbeats of history might just be the sound of something else breathing.